Aloha, welcome to Eco 23. UH Manoa students are taking a closer look at current environmental stories. The effects of climate change are well known to Oahu. What are scientists saying, and what are the politicians doing? Kees Horn has the answers.
It's low tide here at Waialae Beach Park. People come out here to swim, soak in the sun, or go for a stroll. Here, like many other low-lying coastal areas, are at risk of higher storm surges, more flooding, and coastal erosion. Honolulu, like many other coastal cities, is well aware of this threat. Climate scientists like Dr. John Mara, NOAA's Regional Climate Services Director for the Pacific region, explains how sea level rise is more than a rising tide.
Total water level, that's what the folks on the ground feel. That's what gets you wet. And then on top of that, you kind of keep going. Obviously, you have the tides. And then on top of that, you have the waves. And even in some cases, you could add rainfall to that. So it's all those things that are stacking up at any particular place and time to figure out how high that water is.
Dr. Mara and many other climate experts like him support that sea level rise is just one piece of the climate crisis puzzle. The 2017 Sea Level Rise Vulnerability Report says over 17 miles of major roads will flood, 3,880 structures will be destroyed, more than 13,000 residents will be displaced, and Oahu will experience over $12.9 billion in economic loss.
That's a really eye-opening fact, the amount of structures and value that is potentially at risk. But that's what's at risk if we do nothing. And we know really the no action alternative isn't an option for us.
Matthew Gonzer, the Chief Resilience Officer for the Honolulu City and County, is the one to call shots on climate action and resilience plans for Honolulu.
We have some time. We don't have a ton of time to develop the plans, the investments, and the strategies.
The money, resources, and expert advisory are all available. Honolulu has the backing it needs to sustain through this growing climate crisis.
It's refreshing to see there's a change coming for the climate crisis. What started as a viral video of a monk seal in the Alawai Canal on Instagram has become an inspiration for water restoration. Scientists are using Genki balls to clean up the canal.
Alawai was created in 1920. Because of economic change, this canal's glory lies in the past. Sponsored in over 120 countries, we see how Genki balls restore this precious water system into its original form.
When I first moved here, I did not know really anything about the history of the Alawai Canal. I didn't know about the water quality or anything. And so through this process, I have learned that this water is really a big part of the city. There's surrounding elementary schools and canoe teams here. This water actually is very dirty. It's in a very urban area. It's not safe, and it actually can cause different skin rashes for people here, which was really surprising. But I think what's equally surprising is just the whole Genki project and their goal to make this water swimmable and drinkable within 7 years, which is just remarkable.
During this last rain, there was brown water. In 2 days' time, the Alawai cleared. The thing is, where we kept on throwing, the brown water did not even go to that area.
Behind me stands one of Oahu's largest bodies of water. The future of Genki balls is to bring their technology to other contaminated water systems.
We are part of a larger project, which is under the Hawaii Exemplary State Foundation. We are the part that cleans the Alawai Canal, but the other part to their program is to clean the total Ahupua all the way up to the top. So we are just a small component of that.
In another crisis facing Hawaiian waters, opihi, a snail-like creature native to the islands, is at risk of extinction. University students are cultivating opihi to help restore the population.
2 University of Hawaii Manoa grad students studying biology are spawning opihi in the lab. They are worried that because of overfishing, this delicacy could go extinct. Opihi are within the snail family. They both have gills, a mouth tube, a head with tentacles, and strong muscular feet. However,
Opihi were a staple of pre-contact Hawaiian diets, unlike the average marine snail. Therefore, opihi are culturally significant on the islands.
So dating back to early Polynesian settlement, they've just been kind of staples in the diet for both Polynesians and Hawaiians.
And they're delicious things, and a lot of times you'll get them at special occasions, such as like luau's or weddings or something like that. And that's kind of where they hold a place in our culture these days, especially. Basically take opihi that are as large as we can possibly take without mainly hurting the populations as well. So if there's, say, like a group of 5 in like one particular area all bunched up, we'll maybe take 1 or 2.
So right now we're working on completing their life cycle in the lab, being able to spawn them within our lab consistently. So once we're able to do that, we'll be able to settle little opihi babies onto rock substrates that we'll be able to outplant into the intertidal zone, where hopefully they'll crawl off our substrates back onto the rocks and kind of repopulate the area and bring those opihi populations back up to what they used to be.
So that down the road, 10, 20, 50 years from now, people can still enjoy going out into the rocks and collecting opihi and enjoying opihi as a food source.
Much like the rapid decline of opihi on Oahu, there's been a massive decrease in the shark population. Let's dive deep into the Pacific and debunk some myths about these misunderstood creatures.
Sharks help maintain the balance of ocean ecosystems as apex predators. But due to the perception of sharks as dangerous threats to humans, they have not received the protections needed to sustain healthy populations. Just recently at Kewalo's waterfront basin, a man had been bitten in the leg by a shark. Because of this, much talk has been going around about how dangerous sharks are.
So we're at Kewalo's basin right here. A shark attack happened on Easter. And we have this kind of like innate fear of sharks because we hear about all the bad things that happen, like what happened on Easter. I think we can't generalize, overgeneralize like one incident for all the positive experiences that we can have with these creatures.
Now that we've spoken with someone who seems to understand sharks pretty well, it's time to speak with a marine biologist who interacts with them on a daily basis.
Our mission is to get people in the water with sharks and kind of experience how amazing they are firsthand, and then give them as much information as we can about sharks in general, their biology, shark conservation. Basically, sharks are going through a really tough time right now. They're being killed at really drastic rates. About over 100 million sharks are being killed a year. And this is really hurting our ecosystem because sharks are the top apex predators. So what that means is they sit at the top of the food web and they're in charge of keeping that whole thing balanced. If we take sharks out of the ocean, especially at the rate that we're taking them out right now, then the whole food web would collapse. And they are very important for the ocean. They've been evolving for about 400 million years, which is why it's so crucial that we protect them. The ocean produces 80% of our oxygen, so that's why we need sharks in the water to regulate the health. Therefore, we have clean oxygen to breathe. So everything on this planet is connected, and sharks are basically a keystone species.
Great to see efforts are being made to protect these magnificent creatures. Now let's take a plunge with local freedivers whose goal is to keep our ocean environment safe. Jack Vedder has more.
For many freedivers, the ocean is a place of beauty and wonder. But it's also a place that is under threat from a range of environmental challenges.
The ocean is in a pretty bad state right now. We see a lot of plastic pollution, overfishing, and signs of climate change, all affecting marine life.
One of the most visible impacts of climate change on the ocean is the bleaching of coral reefs.
The reefs really matter to me because when the coral reefs bleach, they lose their color and their ability to support really any marine life. And it's not just a concern to me, but it's also a concern to the planet and the health of the world as a whole.
On land, it's easy to forget the impacts that humans have on this fragile ecosystem. But if we take action now, we can protect the oceans and the amazing creatures that call them home.
I think reducing your plastic use is one of the most important things you can do. Using reusable bags, water bottles, and avoiding single-use plastics whenever we can. So an important step to keeping our reefs safe is to use reef-safe sunscreen, because traditional sunscreens can contain harmful chemicals that can affect the reef and the marine life around them. So you can do your part by using reef-safe sunscreen to protect these delicate ecosystems.
By taking action to protect the oceans, we can ensure that this incredible ecosystem remains intact for generations to come. So let's do our part to protect the ocean and create a sustainable future for all. For Eco 23, I'm Jack Vedder.
Whew! Let's come up for a breath of fresh air and check out some straight up gnarly swimsuits. This eco-friendly company has changed the game by making their suits out of recycled materials. Here's Araia Breedlove with the story.
Out of the Blue Swim was founded in the fall of 2021 by Makena Mathy, a University of Manoa student. Besides having a booming business, she is also completely changing the swimwear game. Her eco-friendly and size-inclusive swimwear is what makes this swim company stand out among the rest.
All of our suits are handmade in Bali. I design all of them. I provide the sizing and measurements for all of them, and they all get handmade, and they're all made ethically. All of our suits are made from recycled materials. We have sizes extra small to 5 times extra large. We use the highest quality of recycled materials available on the market right now. I started because sizing in the retail industry is very messed up, and it's not really A, inclusive, and B, always true to size. It's just a lack of, I would say, just access to like cute suits and like suits that everyone else is wearing, and everyone wants to wear something cute and trending. And so I think that moving forward, I would really like to have just more people know about our swimwear, so that way if you are plus size or if you know, whatnot, you know that there is swimwear available for you that is cute and that will actually fit you.
Now that we've got to know the founder of Out of the Blue, let's meet one of the creative minds behind the scenes.
My role is a social media intern, and I create social media for Out of the Blue. The best part about working for Out of the Blue is the freedom to be creative. I love the company that Makena created. It's so vibrant and fun and inclusive, and I love that I can try to portray that through her social media and the things that I make for her. As Makena does a lot of research into making all of her items reusable and making sure that they are good for the planet. If they are not, we will not produce them. We do not want to harm the planet in any way, and we want to be nice to the planet. You know, it's an inclusive and welcoming environment that Makena created in her company, and I want to just be able to portray that to everyone and not just new customers.
Those are some awesome suits. Looks like they'd be perfect for surfing. Let's check out the environmental impacts of creating a surfboard. Flynn Hamlin has the story.
Surfing plays an important role in both the history and culture of Hawaii.
The Hawaiians were surfing from ancient times till now, and they used big wood boards that were felled from trees in the mountain. They were using all natural materials because for Hawaiian culture, culture is nature.
Over the years, surfboard shapers began experimenting with new materials to improve the performance of their boards.
The goal was strength versus weight. How do you make a lighter board that's still strong enough that it won't break?
Today, surfboards are shaped out of extremely light foam blanks, then coated in resin-saturated fiberglass to make them strong and waterproof.
Modern boards are so light, they fly. They're meant to break too.
The standard board that gets broken goes right in the trash. That's not a good solution by any means.
Not only is modern surfboard shaping a wasteful industry, but the materials used are made almost entirely of petroleum.
The board is made from oil. It's contributing to our insatiable thirst for oil. The difficult part is there currently isn't a mass-producible, cost-effective alternative.
And there's been very little to drive the industry towards sustainable solutions. They're making big money out there.
As surfers, we must demand more sustainable efforts in order to spark change within the shaping industry.
The sad reality of the situation is that we are a far cry from being able to claim that surfboards are sustainable. That being said, the bright spots are that we're realizing it's kind of and then from there it's like, okay, well, are you gonna just complain and be part of the system, or are you gonna do something about it?
I would just say, you know, kuleai ke kulana nalu, strive for the highest peak of the wave and do it on a sustainable surfboard.
Tourism has a lot of impact on the environment beyond surfing and surfboards. Hawaii is trying to make the industry more sustainable. Karlee Shay has the story.
In Hawaii, nature is one of the biggest things that pulls visitors here from all over the world. However, eventually this has been taking a toll on the environment. Let's hear what Hawaii is doing to teach and practice sustainable tourism.
I think within every class I've taken, at some point sustainability is a topic brushed on. I would say for just this year, for example, I'm taking 3 courses. One of them being strategic management, and so our guest speakers, actually, we've only had 2, and both of them were about sustainability. And so that was super cool, just like having another aspect of like, and it wasn't necessarily like hospitality industry, it was like transportation, so that's cool. Like I've taken like hospitality focused courses, but I could see like how sustainability like transpires like through transportation as well.
Now that we've seen how we can learn about sustainable tourism, let's take a look at how it's being practiced in the industry.
Being sustainable is super important to Highgate as well as Alohilani. So we are on the land of Queen Liliuokalani's summer home. So she cared about the land so much, and it was super important to us that we continue that to move that forward, right? So I think Hawaii does a great job of encouraging it. And I think what's great about it is that we have so many things that you can see that allow us to want to do it, right? Whether that's hikes, making sure that even just beach cleanups, right? Like we have a beautiful beach out front, so we all participate in cleaning the beach. We do these beach cleanups as a hospitality industry. We go all over the place when we do that, and so I think Hawaii does a great job. I think you can't help but want to do it because we're such an outdoor-based industry and location. Yeah, like we see it, we know it, we want to make sure we're taking care of it.
It is awesome to see these efforts being made towards sustainable tourism. 808 Cleanups is a local non-profit organization working to improve the environment in Hawaii. Gabriela Cervantes has more.
In a world where recycling has been implemented in our lives, has the impact of plastic really reduced? In fact, it's important to mention that around 18 billion pounds of plastic enter the ocean every year. It's hard to understand the fullness of its impact. So, what are we doing to deal with such a big issue?
Our impact in the environment with 808 Cleanups is substantial. I think we reach so many different communities and engage so many different people of all ages to choose to be a part of solutions that are impacting their communities, challenges that are impacting their communities. And so I think for us, we focus primarily on a lot of the natural resource elements of things, but we also look at education. We look at how we work with conservation. We look at what the impacts of travel is doing to our communities. And we address really core and critical pieces of community that communities want to address. And so I think our reach and our impacts there really are substantiated by the things that we are able to accomplish, both in the field and in education, as well as just the amount of people that come through our programs.
808 Cleanups is just one of the many ways that you can help the environment. That's amazing. Let's now listen how they feel after volunteering.
So this event really made me feel satisfied because we don't usually realize how much microplastic are in our beaches. So this activity is really eye-opening and educative for all of us.
This nonprofit organization is restoring the islands of Hawaii from Mauka to Makai. They have organized over 2,000 group cleanup events, data compiled using their mobile app. Little by little, with everyone's help, we can solve these problems and ensure a better future.
The 808 organization also does invasive species removal. From intruding pests to welcoming guests, this team is dedicated to restoring Hawaii's natural ecosystem. Here's Makena Mathy for more details.
For years, 808 Cleanups has been on a mission to keep the beaches of Hawaii clean and free from harmful debris. However, their dedication to the environment goes far beyond beach cleanups and stretches to the shoreline by restoring native plant species that allow the biodiversity of the ecosystem to fully thrive in their homes.
So this particular site had a big problem with invasive plants. They covered all the hillsides, made for an unsafe environment as well. A lot of activities were going on up here that made people feel unsafe and unwelcome. So by clearing those plants, we helped with that safety issue, and we also provide the opportunity to restore native plants.
By restoring plants, we provide a vital source of food and habitat for bees, allowing them to continue their important work in order to pollinate,
leading to a healthier and more diverse ecosystem.
But they're actually bigger than a lot of these flowers. So with the native bees, you're going to get better pollination success with a symbiotic relationship. So restoring the plants, that does help the bees, and we're seeing their bee population do better because of that.
Hawaii now contains 60 species of native bees. Bees have continued to be a key pollinator in the environment. Without them, 75% of crops producing fruits and seeds would not be able to pollinate.
From restoring these native habitats and making a difference in saving biodiversity in the ecosystem, locals are also creating something extra sweet in this community.
So the specialty that I try so hard to bring to the table is the freshest honey possible, the honey that hasn't changed over time. And I have honey sometimes that I've kept for 15 years, right? Those are aged honeys, like you can age a wine. The way I work with the table is to make sure you can taste the different blossoms that are in bloom, that if it's a rainy year, you'll actually even taste a different type of honey than if it's a dry year, because the bees will be going to whatever's in their neighborhood.
Nalomeli honey is having some beautiful effects on the environment. Hawaii's plant quarantine branch inspects organisms of all kinds for environmental green flags. Noah Clay has the story.
You've seen them on every flight into Hawaii, plant and animal declaration forms. For this branch of the government, it's more than just an airborne nuisance. It's a key floodgate to ensuring environmental equilibrium.
So going back to the mandate, so we regulate plant parts, not domestic animals, microorganisms. The regulation is done to protect agriculture, the environment, public and animal health and safety.
This form is one of many safeguards against invasive species, plants or animals not native to a specific region whose presence has negative impacts on the state of the region.
In its native habitat, it's from Australia, it's not a problem at all. But once it gets to Hawaii, it becomes a problem. Koki frog, another example, right? Wasn't a problem anywhere, got to Hawaii, huge problem.
The Hawaii Plant Quarantine Branch was founded in 1888. The branch has been serving Hawaii faithfully ever since. Invasive species are an unavoidable part of Hawaii's delicate natural ecosystem, but there are some aspects to our position in the Pacific that yield certain advantages.
You can do that work with limited resources at a controlled point, and Hawaii has that access, right? You gotta be on a boat or a plane. You can't drive or a train or whatever. You have the ability to really try to mitigate a lot of those risks.
The fight against these blights happens at more than just the legislative and immediate levels. Sometimes all it takes is a good lesson.
Creating material like the pamphlets or handouts for the public, also going to schools to educate the young kids, basically talking to everybody. Everybody is included. The more people know, the better.
Keeping invasive species population down is vital to Hawaii's ecosystem. Conservation Dogs of Hawaii, a local nonprofit organization, is sniffing out alien pests by training dogs to track them down. Jessica Iwamasa has more.
Biosecurity. It's an essential part of conservation efforts, especially in Hawaii, where around 80% of our goods are imported. Most of these goods are sent via cargo ships, which are vulnerable to invasive species stowing away in their holds. Conservation dogs are just one way these species can be identified before they wreak havoc in our environment.
A conservation dog is a scent detection dog that's trained to identify and locate targets in the natural environment usually. And by using their sense of smell, they can help to eradicate or maybe control an invasive species, or they can also help to protect endangered species.
Johnson's dogs are focused on boats heading towards marine monuments such as Johnson Atoll that recovered from yellow crazy ant infestation.
So our biosecurity program aims to use detection dogs to look for invasive rodents and insects such as ants that may, if they're transported to the remote Hawaiian Islands, they may negatively impact wildlife such as native seabirds. So the goal is to inspect boats and planes and cargo that are headed that way and prevent those pests from getting out there.
Outside of the benefits for our environment, conservation dogs enjoy what they do. Running training drills is meant to build stamina by teaching them to find joy in scent tracking target species.
Kayao is my third dog, and each dog, they say, the saying goes that you get the dog that you need, not the dog that you want. So each dog teaches you something. You get a lot out of a dog, especially in doing this kind of work. So to pinpoint it on what a handler learns in working with conservation dogs, it's hard to say.
Wow, these dogs sure can sniff out the tiniest of pests. I wish I could get one for my dorm to get rid of all the roaches. Speaking of pests, take a look at how UH students are protecting indigenous trees, plants, and more at Lion Arboretum. Lili Hurd has the story.
In Upper Manoa Valley lies 200 acres of native plants, trees, and hiking trails located at Lion Arboretum. This botanical gardens is part of UH Manoa, allowing research, volunteer, and education opportunities for both students and the public.
Plants grow here really well. Any plant, including weeds, which is the problem. We don't have to water them much unless we hit a real drought. So luckily, the soil is good, drainage is good, the rainfall is good.
During the 1900s, native forests were heavily impacted in Manoa and in other watersheds throughout the Hawaiian Islands. Without healthy forest cover, rainwater flowed to the ocean rather than recharging the groundwater table, the primary source of potable water in Hawaii. Dr. Harold Lyon, a plant pathologist, concluded that healthy forests should be preserved and that heavily damaged native forests and watersheds could not recover on their own, instead by restoring indigenous plants.
It's usually our native plants that are threatened by environmental conditions or diseases or pests.
Native Hawaiian plants are very sensitive to the change in their environment and takes a lot more work and perseverance to protect. However, more hands getting dirty increases the efforts.
I probably do about 10 or 20 plantings a year would be my guess. This last season we've done a lot more plantings than we normally do.
Volunteers help plant, pick weeds, and maintain many of the hiking trails. Volunteering is about showing gratitude to Mother Nature.
People can find a way to give back in whatever capacity that is. If it's coming out here with us and weeding and getting dirty, or if it's working in the greenhouse or doing whatever kind of work, I think that's definitely really beneficial.
From cleaning and protecting trees to trimming and smoking them, the push to legalize cannabis has been halted this year, but it's just the start of Hawaii's weed war. There's a three-way deadlock between the government, the dispensaries, and the farms in this budding industry. Nevan-Isaiah Pak is coughing up more info.
So, I know that legalization is a policy that still has controversy around it. And while, the majority of the people of Hawaii want to see it happen, and there are still a lot of lawmakers who are elected who are weary of this policy as being successful or something that they would like in their communities. A lot of the more conservative Democrats that have conservative populations don't want to be on record allowing this to go through or seeing it go through. They don't believe that cannabis is a good thing for their community.
While some lawmakers are fighting over the do's and don'ts of cannabis, we have ganja farmers on the island looking to tackle the sustainable farming issue for this resource-heavy reefer.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about sustainability and you're talking about proper farming practices, I would say it does take a little bit of a resource to grow cannabis, but if it's done right and you're amending your soil or not reusing your soil, you're using watering solutions that don't waste water, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of ways now we've learned so much that we can do it the proper way, not overwatering your beds and wasting water, not growing in pots, but growing in giant grow beds, where the water gets saturated throughout the whole thing. You're not just watering the pot and losing all that water. We've already got sustainable practices at this farm that we want to share with every grower, You know how many gallons you're using per plant, what you need. You're managing the soil, you're testing the soil, you're getting out to a lab to say, hey, this is exactly what I need to put in this and no more, These are the amendments I need. You're not using heavy salt-based amendments, which a lot of the dispensaries are using right now. They're growing in cocoa. All they're doing is flooding this cocoa with off-the-shelf nutrients that put a lot of salt in our system. So cocoa is just cocoa fiber. So instead of growing in a soil where you're building microbes and stuff, cocoa fiber holds the plant in there and it's easily drainable. So they're feeding newts. They're going onto tables or flood tables. Those newts are going out and they're not being reused again.
As the Maui Wowie grows and the government mulls over the summer, the future of cannabis being a sustainable crop in Hawaii grows ever closer.
Legalized cannabis isn't the only thing in Hawaii that's going up in smoke. Madisyn Brey explores the impact volcanoes have on the environment and climate. Here's Madisyn.
Volcanoes have been around since before our time and will exist long after.
And without them, the climate, environment, and agriculture that we know and love would be very different.
The eruption can promote a huge effect on climate, or just a local effect, like a widespread or just very local. Volcanic eruptions produce a huge amount of gases like sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide. They can produce a huge amount of ash, volcanic ash, which are very, very fine particles that go into the eruption cloud, and this eruption cloud goes up into the atmosphere and promote this effect, like decreasing the global temperature. These eruptions, they can be responsible for mass extinctions, and scientists relate this large eruption to the extinction of dinosaurs. So it's not only an effect on climate, but also on biodiversity. Yeah.
While volcanoes may be a fan favorite for the science fair, what about these structures makes them so great? Let's hear from Dr. Terry Nauman.
If you didn't have a volcano, you wouldn't have Hawaii. The island would not be there. They make new land masses like Japan and Hawaii and Tahiti and all these other wonderful places that we can go and visit that would not have been there otherwise. These volcanoes add, as you go up in elevation, the temperature cools, the soils get better, and they become wonderful areas for farming.
From Journalism 330, that's Eco 2023. Thanks so much for joining.